The retro motorcycle market is as strong as ever, with a whole bunch of updates and new bikes for the 2021 model year. So in today's video, I'll run you through the best of the new and updated bikes, and at the end I'll tell you my pick of the bunch. But before we get started, if you're new here and you want to see all of the latest motorcycle news right here on YouTube, then please do remember to hit subscribe. Clearly trying for one of, if not the main player in the retro motorcycle arena, with 12 variants in their modern classic lineup. I've made a full video walking through the 2021 bikes with their chief product officer, and there's a link in the description if you haven't seen it already, but here's a quick recap. The T120 is the modern interpretation of the classic Bonneville, with proper old school looks and yet a decent shove of 80 horsepower and bags of torque from its 1200cc parallel twin. 2021 updates include 7 kilograms less weight, partly achieved by fitting aluminium rims for snappier handling, which is good, but also removing some standard kit like the center stand and passenger grab rail, which is bad. That said, it does get some new Brembo branded front brake calipers that are said to improve stopping power, and it now comes with single button cruise control for some added comfort on longer trips. Its smaller sibling, the 900cc T100, also gets a new Brembo brake at the front. It's dropped 4 kilograms since last year, has new upgraded cartridge forks, and has seen its peak power rise from 55 to 65 PS. There have also been some styling tweaks, including black engine cases and rims, and for me, it now looks like a pretty good prospect. It's slightly more nimble than the T120, but that increase in power brings it much closer in terms of performance. If you fancy something a little more modern looking, then the Street Twin might be what you're after. It's got some fresh paint jobs, new wheels and side panels, and some redesigned hardware, all of which combine with that classic Bonneville silhouette for something timeless but contemporary. Performance and spec remain largely unchanged with the same 65 PS peak as the T100, but at £8,200 it's almost £1,000 cheaper. There's also a limited edition this year called the Gold Line, which showcases Triumph's in-house hand-finished pinstriping with a striking black and gold colour scheme. For a more laid-back riding position, there's the Bobber, which comes with a larger 12-litre fuel tank for this year, and the Speedmaster, which has a reworked saddle for better long-range comfort. Both of these use the 1200cc twin with similar figures to the T120. Now there's still more to come with updates due to the Scrambler 1200s and the Street Scrambler next month, and although the sporty cafe racer style Thruxton RS was updated last year, the similar but more upright Speed Twin is due a refresh in the coming months as well. I'll be covering all of those new bikes in full detail, so do subscribe if you're not already and you want to see those videos. Last up for Triumph, you could consider the Trident 660 somewhat retro with its round headlight and tank design inspired by the original Triumph Trident, although elsewhere it's much more modern than the Bonnevilles. Either way, it's good value at a shade over £7,000, and for that reason, I just bought one. Now another manufacturer with a fairly broad range of retro bikes is BMW, offering 4 different flavours of their R9T. There's the base R9T Pure, which offers the most stripped back package around the 1170cc Boxer Twin. It's good for 109 horsepower, which is certainly at the higher end for this genre of bike. But if you want more premium spec radially mounted Brembo brakes and adjustable upside down forks, then you'll need to spend an extra couple of grand on the range topping R9T. That's a bike I borrowed from BMW for a few weeks last year and absolutely loved, as it offers properly good mechanical performance with loads of character, yet minimal distractions in terms of tech, just how a good retro bike should be. For something a little more off-roady, the R9T Scrambler takes the same spec as the Pure, but adds a bit of extra travel in the suspension, taller bars, grippy foot pegs, and some Scrambler styling cues like the fork boots, tuck and roll style seat, and a high-level exhaust. The Urban GS goes a step further with the high-level front mudguard, a headlight shroud cum fly screen, and this one looks particularly good to me in the 40th anniversary colour scheme that they've offered for 2021. Other updates for the new model year include a slight redesign to the engine with better cooling and a new turbulence system that improves the mixing of fuel and air, resulting in a stronger feel in the mid-range. There's a new suspension linkage at the rear for improved balance and comfort, whilst the hand wheel makes preload adjustment easier on the roadside. 2 riding modes of road and rain now come as standard, as does their lean-sensitive ABS Pro and dynamic brake control, which kills the throttle under emergency braking. A new clock design, LED lighting, and a USB socket under the saddle round off a nice selection of improvements. Another one of my favourites is the MOTO GUZZI V7 Stone, with its distinctive transverse V-twin in a timeless looking package. Brakes and suspension are relatively basic, but it's a touch lighter than some similar rivals. It packs a massive 21-litre fuel tank for bags of range, and like the R9T, the shaft drive means that there's no chain maintenance to bother with. The only major drawback for me was that it used to look a little underpowered compared to the competition. But for 2021, it's had a decent bump in capacity from 744cc up to 853, and as a result, the power has gone up from 52 horsepower peak to 65. That's far more competitive, putting it a few horses ahead of the Triumph Street Twin. To cope with the extra power, they've fitted a wider 150 section rear tyre, upgraded KYB shocks, and fitted a new, larger final drive. The headstock area has been strengthened for better handling, and there are some improvements in comfort too, with a new 2-tier seat and revised rider foot pegs. Styling has also been tweaked with new side panels, a shorter rear mudguard, and a revised exhaust layout. The headlight gets a new daytime running light in the shape of the MOTO GUZZI Eagle, and there's an all-digital dash as opposed to the analog clocks of the previous gen. There's also the V7 Special with a more old-school look of spoked wheels, twin analog clocks, a chrome exhaust, and more glossy finishes, and this one of course gets all of the same performance and chassis updates as the Stone. MOTO GUZZI also updated their laid-back, almost cruiser-style V9 Bobber and V9 Roma with a similar bump in power to the V7, as well as the digital dash and strengthening in the headstock. Their V85 TT adventure bike, which has a bit of an 80s aesthetic, also saw a few updates with new lighter tubeless rims for easier puncture repair and some extra riding modes of sport and custom. And all of these bikes are available in a centenary paint job to celebrate 100 years of MOTO GUZZI in 2021, and I reckon it looks absolutely stunning. Ducati's Scrambler range starts with the Icon Dark, which keeps costs down by using a plain black finish and some lower spec parts like the mirrors, but underneath it's still the same lively machine. The 803cc L-Twin makes a respectable 73 horsepower, and for a retro it's fairly light too at 189 kilograms wet. It gets the same KYB suspension, Brembo 4-pot front brake, cornering ABS and Pirelli tyres as some of the more expensive options, so if you're looking for a basic finish, perhaps as a platform to customize on, then this one is a great choice. For a few £100 more, there's the Scrambler Icon, which gets you self-cancelling LED indicators, a machined finish on the wheels, better mirrors, a USB socket, and 3 colour choices of yellow, orange, or red, which is new for 2021. The more off-road capable desert sled with its reinforced frame, longer adjustable suspension, dedicated swing arm, spoked wheels, 19-inch front, reinforced bars and rally-style bodywork also gets a new paint job with a red, white and blue scheme with gold rims. Completely new for this year is the Night Shift with a more cafe racer inspired take on the Scrambler format, with spoke wheels, narrower bars, bar and mirrors, a swing arm mounted license plate holder, a bench style seat and some number boards on the side, all in this rather stealthy looking metallic grey finish. It certainly has a more premium look to it than the Icon. Further up the range there's the 1100s with more capacity and therefore more power, producing 86 horsepower peak at 7,500 RPM. There's also fully adjustable suspension front and rear, twin Brembos as opposed to the single disc of the 800s, and more electronics like riding modes, power modes, and lean sensitive traction control. Like the 800s, there's a dark model as the entry point into the range, and then the 1100 Pro with a more premium yellow, silver and black finish, as well as blacked out components and premium mirrors. But the range topper is the 1100 Pro Sport with top-notch Öhlins suspension front and rear, as well as narrow bars, bar and mirrors, and a sleek black finish with a glossy 1100 logo on the tank. Now, just a few months back, Honda announced the CB350 Highness. It's a neat little single-cylinder bike with more than a hint of Bonneville about it, and it packs a bit of tech too, like switchable traction control and a phone connectivity system. It was originally intended purely for the Indian market to take on the likes of the Royal Enfield, but in recent weeks we've heard from a source at Honda in India that the bike would already meet European standards and therefore is ripe for exporting. Apparently, they're just waiting on the green light from Honda's HQ in Japan, and here's hoping they get it, because it would be a great option as a second bike, or a good-looking city commuter, or an ideal starter bike, or even a basis for a small capacity custom. They've also just followed up with a slightly more modern RS version, which looks pretty good as well. In fact, the bike that they're specifically going up against is the Royal Enfield Meteor 350, which is super similar in spec with a 350 single that puts out about 20 horsepower. Suspension and braking are fairly basic, with keeping the cost low a priority, and there's a decent amount of tech on show with an LCD dash, trip and navigation device, USB charging point, dual-channel ABS, and an LED daytime running light and tail light. The good news is that this one definitely will be available in Europe, although personally I think I prefer the styling of the CB350, so it might be worth the wait for that one. Elsewhere in the Enfield range, their super popular 650 twins are expected to get colour updates for 2021. The Interceptor was the third best-selling bike in the UK last year, only beaten by BMW's ever-popular 1250 GS and 1250 GS Adventure. But it's easy to see why the Interceptor sells so well, with good looks and a reasonable spec given the low starting price of £5,699. The Cafe Racer style Continental GT also seems to fare well, but the more practical upright riding position of the Interceptor gives it that broader appeal. Both bikes are expected to receive small updates for 2021, with a focus on offering a wide range of new colour schemes. In fact, there are a few other retros that just got new paint this year, but they're certainly worth mentioning. Kawasaki's Z900 RS is essentially a body kit on their modern Z900 sports bike with a 948cc inline-4, pumping out 109 horsepower to rival the likes of the BMW R9T. And then there's Yamaha's XSR 700, which is based upon their super popular twin-cylinder middleweight naked, the MT-07, and the XSR 900, which is based upon the next bike up, the triple-cylinder MT-09. Both the MT-07 and MT-09 have just been updated, with the 09 specifically getting a fairly comprehensive overhaul. So there could be something in the works for the XSRs too. And that rounds off pretty much all of the new and updated bikes for this year. As for which would be my pick, if I was buying today, I'd go for something at the sporty end, and it's hard to look past the R9T. There are loads of parallel twins in this market, so the Boxer engine gives it a distinctive flavour, the looks are great, it handles well, and the tech and gadgets are minimal, which suits the intent of such a bike. That said, the Speed Twin can match it in most departments, and I can't wait to see what Triumph have in store with the update that's due in a few months' time. But as always, I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Which retro would be your pick for 2021? I'll be trying to ride and review as many of them as possible over the course of the year, so if you're new here and you want to see those videos, hit subscribe and I'll catch you next time.